Questions today about the federal murder trial of Luigi Mangione, the man accused of killing UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson. There's a hearing scheduled for Friday morning where reportedly Mangione could accept a plea deal. Mangione's legal team discussed a potential deal with federal prosecutors back in June. But the question is, if a deal is reached, what does that mean for the state trial against him? Let's bring in our senior judicial analyst, Judge Andrew Napolitano, and Barak, Lurie, an attorney at Lurie and Kramer and host of the Barak Lurie Show. All right, so obviously, Judge, this is a high-profile case, outrageous case. Why would there be a plea deal in the federal case, and what does that mean for the state's case against him if this does go down Friday?
Well, the death penalty is off the table on both cases due to rulings by both trial judges. These two cases are effectively trying the same facts, one of which arguably violates a state law against murder, the other which arguably violates some rather abstruse federal laws about traveling in interstate commerce in order to have an effect on it. But both of them carry life in prison if he's convicted. If he pleads guilty in the state case and then goes to trial in the federal case, the federal prosecutors will be able to read the guilty plea to the jury. So the only thing that he can do to save himself from life in prison at this point, in my view, is a combined guilty plea in the state court, in the federal court, where he serves a finite period of time in a federal institution and has some light at the end of the tunnel, like maybe 35 or 40 years from now. Otherwise, I don't see any plea being accepted if it's not a common one accepted in both cases.
Wow, fascinating. Barak, you're nodding. It seems you are in agreement. But I have to ask you, if you're his defense, why would you do this now? Obviously, avoiding life is a big incentive for your client. But they've been really trying to poke holes in some of the evidence that was collected. At this point, you know, you can make a deal later. Why do it now?
Well, I think that the chances are that they are, in fact, pursuing a plea bargain deal, but it may not be that they're going to introduce some sort of plea bargain arrangement. It may be that they're going to say, look, Judge, can we defer this case? Can we put a stay in these proceedings for the time being while we work out something with the state? As the good judge said, the fact is that you have to kind of have some sort of common plea deal if you're going to really make this work for the sake of Luigi Mangione's perspective. So I think that might actually be one of the things that we're going to see on Friday, is that they're going to ask to buy some time in order to work out this more complicated arrangement. Evidence-wise, they may very well, you know, yes, they've had some pokes at the evidence, of course, but that's what they have to do. I think they know that they really don't have a very strong defense in this case.
All right. Well, obviously, a lot of questions, and we'll see how it plays out on Friday this week. Judge, let me ask you about this. There's a report now that the Justice Department has convened a special grand jury in Washington. D.C. special grand jury to be overseen by Stephen Vander Velden, one of the U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro's top allies in the office. What do you make of this? What could they be investigating? We also know the DOJ and Todd Blanche has a big announcement coming at 1 o'clock. It'll be his first news conference since being sworn in. But obviously, there's been a lot of cases in D.C. Of course, the reflecting pool comes front of center here. Special grand jury, what do you make of that?
Well, a special grand jury ordinarily doesn't indict. It could indict, but ordinarily it conducts investigations. And if the results of the investigation are satisfactory to the presiding judge, a judge not particularly friendly to the Trump administration, you know the name, Judge James Boasberg. He's the presiding judge, the chief judge of the federal district court in Washington, D.C. So he actually is the person to whom the grand jury would report. If he approves of whatever their report is, whatever it says, whoever they're going to criticize, then that report becomes public. Sometimes these critical reports can result in litigation. Sometimes they can ruin people's reputations. Sometimes they can be forgotten the next day.
Something tells me this will come up at Todd Blanche's news conference at 1 o'clock. We're tight on time. Barak will give you the final word when we do our next segment, and I hope you both come back soon. Barak, Lurie, Judge Knapp, appreciate you both.
Sure.